The Suns have found themselves in far more headlines than they would have liked to see from this season. From a shaky deal including signing DeAndre Ayton to a controversial max contract, to trade talks surrounding Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and OG Anunoby, adding in an aging Chris Paul who may have finally started to regress this season, as well as one of the worst owners the league has ever seen. We also can't forget Jay Crowder, who has yet to play this season while waiting on a trade, and sprinkle in some injuries to Paul, Booker, Johnson, Shamet, and Payne. The Suns have struggled mightily without their superstar, but two players have risen from the ashes and managed to carry the Suns team to a still positive record. I'm making this before Devin Booker comes back against the Nets, but the Phoenix Suns are 8-2 in their last 10 games, thanks to their wing duo in Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges. Now, Bridges didn't have the greatest start off to the season. While his stats remain the same or even saw a slight bump, he didn't have as much growth as I was hoping for after a promising season last year. Add in injuries to Cameron Johnson and Jay Crowder, as well as a still recovering Dario Saric, this left a massive hole at the power forward spot, leaving the skinny 6'6" wing to play the 4. With injuries to 4 of the Suns guards, as well as the return of Johnson and Saric later in the season, this slid Bridges up to the number 2 spot, and as the starting shooting guard, Bridges has been on arguably the best stretch of his entire career and has finally been taking the steps I was hoping that we could see from him. In his last 10 games, he is averaging 23 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds per game on a very respectable 58% true shooting percentage. Likely with no other options to turn to, Monty Williams has given Bridges far more control of the offense, and he has been delivering results. Through handoffs, mid-range pull-ups, and the quick pick and roll, Bridges has been given far more opportunities to score off the perimeter, and he has been living up to it. I have been a longtime believer in Bridges, but the thing that has separated him from being a good to a great player is his ability to create his own shots. I don't think he's ever been weak in that category, but he hasn't ever had the greatest sample size. Typically, we see Bridges operate in the 3-and-D capacity, showing off some of his potential on the fast break or in a rare action pointed his way. While 76% of his 2-point attempts were assisted on last season, that is down to just 60% this season. Last year, 56% of his 3-pointers were taken in the corner. This year, less than 46% of those are in the corner, a clear sign of his involvement within the offense. Given the fact that the Suns are near 6 points better per 100 possessions when he is on the court, Bridges is definitely having a huge swing in the Suns offense. His biggest game of the year may have just come over a week ago in the Suns' victory against the Raptors, where Bridges was a clear driver on the offensive side of the ball, putting up 29 points on 12 of 19 shooting. Or it may have just been the Suns' dominant victory against the Celtics, where Bridges put up 25 as the Suns handled the Celtics in Boston. Tatum was left with only 20 points on 3 of 15 shooting, and Brown had 27, but he only shot 9 of 21 from the field. Defensively, there is little to complain about with Bridges. Instead of being the smaller matchup at the 4 spot, I would argue that he is a huge mismatch for offensive players to go up against as a shooting guard. Standing 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan, he's an incredibly difficult perimeter defender to score on. While his defensive stats for this year are still a bit ugly, his defensive rating over the last 10 games has improved, and games such as the Celtics show his impact against stars. Not to mention his defended field goal percentage is also down 4 points since January 19th. But the guy I really want to talk about is Cameron Johnson. Johnson is someone who I've been wanting to make a video on for over a year now, but he's just missing that one breakout performance, that one star-filled year to put him on the map. He did have a huge buzzer beater against the Knicks last season, but outside of that, he just hasn't really made as many big leaps as I was hoping for. Johnson is one of the best pure shooters in the NBA, shooting 45% from 3 on 6 attempts per game, which could put him at 3rd in the entire league. Currently, he doesn't qualify due to injury, but if you still don't believe me, amongst qualified players last season, he had the 4th best 3-point percentage in the entire league. He was also top 10 in true shooting percentage amongst all non-centers. But outside from the 3, his scoring has still been proficient, and he's shown flashes of being a devastating slasher, transition player, or even having that sweet mid-range pull-up game. While his ceiling probably isn't as high as I was hoping it would be, he can still have flashes in the pan that could remind you of some other devastating 3-level scorers such as Carmelo Anthony or Kevin Durant. Now, the one thing holding back Johnson has been his consistency. In his 8 games back, he's been great, averaging 15 points per game on an insane 66% true shooting percentage, but his performances can be wildly inconsistent as he has had 3 single-digit scoring games in his 8-game return. Now, this can be chalked up partially due to his injury and trying to return from it, but these kind of games where he disappears is not uncommon for Cameron Johnson. I do think that this could be improved with a bit of an increase in Johnson's playing time, pertaining his recovery of course. One thing that was always made me love Johnson is his per 36 or per 100 possession stats, and the consistent growth that he has shown over the course of his career. Since his 2nd year, he has constantly increased in both his scoring and efficiency. Per 100 possessions, he would be scoring 27 points per game on what's currently a career high in true shooting percentage, While he would rank near the 70s in the entire league when it comes to scoring, when it comes to his scoring per 100 possessions, he's much closer to around 50th in the entire league. Now, I don't think that he should be playing that many minutes, but it is a sign that he is an incredibly efficient player who should be receiving more opportunities within the offense and a few more minutes on the court. The other part to back that up has been his defense. Now, Johnson doesn't have a large sample size, only playing 16 games as of right now, but the Suns' defense is currently 7 points better with Cameron Johnson on the floor. I'm not so sure if this is Cameron Johnson being an amazing defender or the Suns just being that bad defensively throughout this year, but Johnson is by no means the weakest link. But the big question is this sort of play repeatable? Can we see an expanded Bridges and Johnson play for the rest of the season? With Bridges, I do have a few doubts, but it's not necessarily anything that's his own fault. Recently, he has been playing over 37 minutes per game, and he's also doing this on playing 364 straight regular season games, the longest active streak currently. I don't have reason to believe that Mikal will get injured, but it's definitely not wise to keep him on that many minutes while putting this many miles on a relatively young player. The second is the return of Devin Booker. When Booker is gone, the Suns have a 27-point, 20 field goal attempt hole that needs to be filled. Bridges has done an excellent job when it comes to filling this role and being the player that the Suns need. In my mind, he's definitely proven himself of being capable as a legitimate second threat on the perimeter, but that's going to require him to get more shots within the offense, something that I'm not sure if he's going to get once we see Booker back and healthy. It's also worth mentioning that DeAndre Ayton and Chris Paul have shown some improvement on the year in their last 10 games. Ayton is averaging a very efficient 20 and 12, and Chris Paul is putting up 16 points and 8 assists per game in the last 10 games, looking a lot closer to last season rather than him just flat out regressing. Both of these two deserve credit in the Suns turning it around, and more importantly, keeping the offense open for Bridges to operate. For the year, I think Bridges is quietly going to continue being an amazing player, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see his touches drop a bit. As for Cameron Johnson, he definitely is someone who needs more minutes, but I'm not sure if we're really going to see it, especially again with the return of Booker. But the big thing to watch with Johnson would be if he would be able to do a lot surrounding the bench. While he is starting in nearly all of his games now, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some big minutes running with the twos. The other thing to watch with Johnson is how long he will actually remain a Sun. While I love having both of these guys at the forward spots, there have been plenty of trade talks, and if the Suns want to move the needle to be contenders again, they may need to upgrade one of the two. I don't love to see either of them gone, but I would rather trade Johnson over Bridges. Giving Johnson a few more minutes per game may also showcase to the rest of the league why you need Cameron Johnson on your team, and it may boost his own trade value. Regardless, the Phoenix Suns may have just finished weathering the Bookerless storm, and that is in big thanks to one of the most dynamic forward duos in the league, as without the Wonder Twins, the playoffs may just be a dream for the Valley.